This week, we're going to talk about easy ways to increase your clarity in difficult situations. Before we get started, I invite you to hit that red subscribe button so you can get notifications each week when new content is added. And I hope you'll take a moment to like this and comment about what you found most helpful so I can keep creating content that is the most effective and helpful for unstoppable leaders like you. Isn't it ironic how we often search for clarity about clarity? As tempting as it is to want to know the right next step with certainty, we don't always have to have all the answers. At least they don't have to be clear in this moment. However, it is true that clarity is vital for achieving goals and attaining success. That's why we're hungry for it. What's interesting, at least to me, is that most of the time we have more clarity than we lack. We are just hyper aware of a lack of clarity in the case of what feels like a big, high stakes decision. Do I change careers? Do I take on this new project? Do I need more credentials? Or in some cases, why is all my effort not paying off like I thought it would? In fact, when things don't go the way that we think they should, we actually start to question whether we're wrong, whether our clarity wasn't clear at all. We create in that moment our own lack of clarity. You see, clarity is less about every single step in the process as it is about knowing what our goals are in the first place. Of course, if you have vague or absent goals, it means any path is going to get you there. And it also creates a nagging sense of dissatisfaction. You probably know what I mean. Additionally, when we focus on the steps rather than moving towards the goal, we lose our own clarity very quickly. So, what if you're not feeling much clarity in this moment? What if you can't make up your mind about what goal you should choose and your decision making seems kind of messy, muddled, foggy? This is actually a very common challenge, and it happens to the best of us from time to time. Take myself, for example. I have two businesses. I run a marketing and a branding consultancy, as well as I have an executive leadership coaching practice. There was a lengthy period of time when I simply could not get clarity about how the two businesses would work together or how I could choose between the two of them. I allowed myself to remain in that place of being uncertain while I gathered information about what my existing clients wanted and even who I could best serve. Perhaps it wasn't my current clients. As I did my research, I began to see that the two businesses were not as separate as I had originally thought. The CEOs and executives of the businesses I help still to this day with their branding, also those leaders have personal brands themselves. Their brands impact their businesses' brands. And growing their personal impact and influence only enhances the influence and impact that their businesses have. That was a light bulb moment for me. I let my own uncertainty lead me to my clarity. Fortunately, moving from a sense of uncertainty into full clarity isn't particularly difficult unless we choose to make it that way. All you need to do are take a few simple actions. And by the way, you can choose between these actions. You don't have to do them all, and clarity will follow. So I'm going to give you 8 actions you can take. The first is to become curious. That's what I did. If you aren't clear what to do next, you don't have to just sit there waiting for inspiration to hit you. Instead, you can ask a small circle of trusted friends. And I do advise you to keep that circle small, 3 or less, of friends, peers, advisors, for their experience and insight in a similar situation. You can meditate on the issue. I like to go into meditation and ask an open-ended question and just listen for what my intuitive guidance has for me. You can experiment with approaches, which is also what I did. That's part of curiosity. And yes, you can risk getting it wrong when you do that. But regardless, curiosity shifts our perspective and our focus away from the problem and onto the solution. It is open, it is being teachable, and if you're going to get clarity, you're going to need to try something new. So try curiosity. The second is to take responsibility. Of course, as leaders, we feel uber responsible, right? But when we own our goals because they mean a tremendous amount to us, we reclaim any power we might have given over to others, going as far back as our parents, our teachers, our friends, a boss, our industry, to tell us what we should have as our goals, what we should be striving towards. The power of taking full responsibility for what we want and for our choices and for anything is that we give ourselves the power to change it. If you believe that something is inside of your control, you can always find a way to have what it is you want, and you'll never be stuck. Clarity is something that ultimately we create. It's not something that happens to us. Okay, now sit with that for a moment. You create your clarity. If you're currently not as well practiced in creating clarity as you would like, okay, start with being crystal clear that you're going to work on getting clear. That's an oddly powerful idea. Start by making a decision that you have the right to be unsure if it's perfect, but make that decision and then stick with it until you reach a goal. Since you get better at making decisions by being aware of your priorities, you may need to spend some time contemplating what's not important to you. I talk a lot about priority setting. That's a big part of clarity. Know what your priorities are. All right. Third thing you can do is actually use your past. Your past is a tool that's always available. You are always learning about yourself, what your strengths are, your desires, your preferences. By reflecting on past successes and disappointments, you begin to see patterns. If you have had an experience similar to the one where you currently find yourself being uncertain or unclear, you can look for patterns and beliefs in the past that you might be trying to either avoid or you are afraid you are recreating. Often the greatest obstacle to clarity is a fear of failing at what we truly want. So we block ourselves from allowing that we want it. If what you clearly desire seems unattainable or seemed unattainable in the past, try approaching it differently and open yourself up to the possibility that your goal was achievable by trying a different route. Own your goal. The fourth thing that you can do is to use visualization. I talk about visualization a lot. You may think that things have to be a certain way before you can feel clear. Having everything kind of just so can make focusing easier, or at least it feels like it's easier. However, even when things aren't just so and they aren't perfect, you can still choose to make a decision and stick with it. All right, so let's look at how that plays out. Instead of waiting for ideal circumstances, visualize what your life would be like if the ideal circumstances were already in place. What would you know that you don't know right now? How would you feel? Visualization can help you make decisions as though things are actually already the way you want them to be. So I encourage your visualization to be as vivid, as multisensory as possible. A friend of mine recently shared how he was putting off meditating on his beautiful back porch until he had the mountain home he was envisioning. Now, he already has a beautiful back porch. So I encouraged him to not put off until someday what he could give himself right now in this moment. And by experiencing his perfect, clear goal, he actually moved towards it both in his mind and his present experience. All right, now here's number 5. Write down your goals and review them. Having a written objective helps us to stay clear. It gets us out of this kind of uh, volume of goals and thoughts that can compete with each other. Write it down, get clear. First of all, you have to make some decisions to even have a goal in the first place, right? And second, by reviewing that goal every day, you keep reinforcing that goal and that clarity. And as you do this work, your clarity will become greater and greater each day. And then review your goals first thing in the morning, perhaps. I like to do that, and I set intentions. And then last thing at night also could work well, or you do both. I also encourage you to have 3 types of goals. What you will have, that's a big one people focus on. What you will be, we tend to overlook that. And what you will do. So we talk about what we will have and what we will do, but we tend to skip how we will be. And that is a crucial goal. How will we be? All right. Number 6. This is a crazy thing. Listen to this idea. Believe that it is okay to have an okay goal, and it is better to have an okay goal than no goal at all. Many people get stuck making a goal because they believe they have to come up with the perfect goal. So believe an okay goal is better than no goal. Nothing could be further than the truth than believing a goal has to be perfect. Don't spend too much time or energy trying to create the perfect goal. It becomes a distraction. Just pick something that feels good to you and start working on it. I promise you, perfect or imperfect, your goals will evolve over time. Not only that, goals are just the next step towards your next goal. Think about that. You're never done. So you never reach a final destination. Lean into the journey of clarity. It is an evolving process. Number 7, focus on one goal at a time. I guess this has to be said in our multitasking world. It's a shame that we have to say it, but focus on one goal at a time. Having a high level of clarity is easier if you're only focusing on one thing at a time. Avoid spreading yourself too thin, especially at first. Certainly, we often have several tasks that are part of achieving our goals, but too many goals is a recipe for confusion and lack of fulfillment. If you're like me, you have a little bit of fear of missing out, right? But you will definitely miss out if you don't focus. And lastly, use your intuition. This one is very near and dear to my heart. Intuition is this vast store of wisdom and insight in our unconscious mind. And that unconscious mind is the seat of our intuition, which not only has access to our past experiences at blinding speeds, but also is constantly communicating to our conscious mind what we desire and need. I teach about ways to strengthen our connection to our intuition so we can access it reliably on demand in decisions where data and clarity are lacking. One of the ways to do this is by keeping a dream journal, which builds the neural network between our conscious and our unconscious mind. Another is to check in with our bodies, see where we feel certain experiences and emotions, and hold on to tension. Our intuition is always providing guidance and insight when we know how to listen and recognize it. As you can see, you can do a lot of things to increase your level of clarity. The best news is that you don't have to wait. you can get started today trying any of these 8 approaches. So begin here in this moment and take a micro step towards clarity. Which of these approaches resonated with you? Was it intuition, looking at your past? What is it that really caught your eye of something that you could try? And for the next 24 hours, get clear about that. The more often we look for clarity, the more often we find clarity because, as you've heard me say before, as we know, where we focus, we flourish. And we attract the energy we are putting into the universe. So am I putting out energy of confusion or energy of clarity? As you increase your clarity, your life will seem easier and easier. And before you know it, you're going to achieve those goals you never even thought you could set for yourself. Now that's progress. Yeah. All right. So enjoy this. I hope you'll like it. Please subscribe, and we'll see you next week.